This game of Commander is brought to you by Sire of Insanity, because hands are for magicians and hookers. Welcome to a game of 3-player Commander featuring 3 pain decks. Life totals do not stay high for very long in this game. I am playing Nekusar, the Mindrazer, with the hand of Dragonskull Summit, Mountain, Sol Ring, Preordained, Swamp, Bloodchief Ascension. Kyle is playing Kaervek the Merciless, Fitting Name, and keeps a hand of 3 Swamps, Rakdos Signet, Vandal Blast, Temple of Malice, and Havoc Festival, a card that is a dick. Joe is playing Cha the Alara, and keeps a hand of Marchesa the Black Rose, Shard Convergence, Athreos, God of Passage, Farseek, Sulphur Falls, Reflecting Pool, Sacred Foundry. I start the game by playing Mountain, and hold back on playing Sol Ring without a blue source yet. Joe plays Sacred Foundry. Kyle scries with Temple of Malice, leaving a card on top. I play Swamp, and Joe plays Sulphur Falls. Kyle plays Swamp and casts Rakdos Signet. I play Swamp, cast Sol Ring, and then cast Talisman of Dominance, and use it to cast Preordained, taking 1 damage. The first of many more to come. I cast Bloodchief Ascension and pass. Joe plays Reflecting Pool. Kyle plays Swamp and casts Ratchet Bomb. Lucky him. I play Dragonskull Summit and cast Nekusar, taking another damage off the Talisman. Joe draws an extra card on his turn and takes 2 damage. Joe plays Reliquary Tower and casts Marchesa the Black Rose. I trigger Bloodchief Ascension at the end of his turn, and Kyle ratchets his bomb up a tick. Kyle draws 2 and loses 2, plays Swamp and overloads Vandal Blast, destroying 2 of my stuffs. I trigger the Ascension at the end of Kyle's turn. I attack Kyle for 2 with Nekusar, and in response, Kyle blows up his bomb, destroying my enchantment, with a Rakdos deck nonetheless. I play Graven Cairns and cast Underworld Dreams. On his turn, Joe draws 2 cards and loses 4 life. Joe plays Isolated Chapel and casts Mogus, God of Slaughter. Marchesa dethrones me, dealing me 4 damage. Kyle takes 6 damage at the start of his turn, 4 from me and 2 from Mogus. Kyle casts Demonic Tutor and then plays Mountain. I lose 2 life on my upkeep from Mogus. I exile Kyle's graveyard with Bojuka Bog. Joe takes 4 damage from Nekusar and Underworld Dreams on his turn. Joe casts Athreos, God of Passage. Joe dethrones me again with Marchesa, dealing me 5 damage. Kyle terminates Nekusar at the end of Joe's turn. Kyle takes 3 damage on his turn and plays Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, giving me more black mana that I so desperately need, and casts Liliana and uses its -2 effect, finding and putting a card on top of his library. I cast Vampiric Tutor at the end of Kyle's turn, paying 2 life and going to get some blue mana. I play Cascade Bluffs on my turn and cast Niv-Mizzet the Firemind. Joe takes 1 damage and casts Sorin, Lord of Innistrad. Joe pluses the Planeswalker and makes a 1/1 vampire. Joe attacks Liliana with Marchesa. Kyle takes 3 damage and plays Cabal Coffers, making a lot of mana. Kyle casts Exsanguinate for 10, dealing Joe and I 10 damage and gaining him 20 life. I take 2 damage from Mogus on my turn, and draw a card and deal 1 damage to the Vampire token with Niv-Mizzet. I play Terramorphic Expanse and cast Time Spiral, shuffling our hands and graveyards, dealing 7 damage to Kyle, and 3 damage to Joe, and 4 damage to Sorin with the Underworld Dreams effect. With the Niv-Mizzet effect, I deal 5 damage to Marchesa, and 2 more damage to Kyle since he has the highest life total. Joe triggers Athreos, targeting Kyle, and Kyle puts Marchesa back into Joe's hand. I cast Sire of Insanity, and we all discard our hands at the end of my turn. Joe takes 1 damage on his turn from Underworld Dreams and casts a Johnny Vengeant, and pluses it to keep Niv-Mizzet from untapping. Kyle takes 3 damage on his turn, plays Evolving Wilds, and casts Kaervek. I opt not to use Niv-Mizzet so that it won't untap next turn. I break while it's at the end of Kyle's turn, and so does he. I take 2 damage on my upkeep from Mogus and Miracle into Reforge the Soul, dealing 1 damage to Kaervek with Niv Mizzet. Kaervek deals 5 damage to me. Everyone draws 7 cards, and I deal 7 damage to Kyle and Joe with Underworld Dreams, and Niv Mizzet deals another 3 damage to Kaervek, finishing it off, and the other 4 damage to a Johnny, killing it as well. I attack Kyle for 6 with my demon. I play Island and cast Shield Red Whispering One. We discard down to 0 at my end step. Joe takes 1 damage from Underworld Dreams when he draws. Joe Path to Exile's Shield Red, getting me a land. Kyle loses 3 life on his turn and recasts Kaervek. After the end step, I draw a card with Niv Mizzet, dealing Kyle 1 damage. Holding Damnation in hand, but no way of casting it without being killed by Kaervek, I have to come up with a different plan. I start by sacking Sire of Insanity to Mogus, and then draw a card and deal 1 damage to Kaervek. I flash back Faithless Looting in my graveyard. Kyle deals 1 damage to me with Kaervek. I draw 2 cards and deal Kaervek 2 damage. I draw with Niv Mizzet and deal Kaervek another 1 damage, killing it once again. I cast Urabrask the Hidden and Vandal Blast Kyle's Signet. I attack Kyle for 4 with Urabrask. Joe takes a damage and still can't cast his commander without green mana. Kyle takes another 3 damage on his turn and casts Sever the Bloodline on Niv Mizzet, and then flashes it back to also kill Urabrask. I took 2 damage on my next turn and recast Nekusar. Joe took 4 damage on his turn. Kyle takes 6 damage at the start of his turn and casts Cryptghast, and then casts Barter in Blood, extorting Joe and I, losing us each 1 life and gaining Kyle 2 life, killing me. Still with no green mana, Joe passes the turn, but at least doesn't take any damage. Kyle loses 2 life on his turn and recasts Kaervek. Joe casts nothing on his turn, luckily for him because he couldn't anyway. Kyle sacks Kaervek on his upkeep so that he doesn't die to Mogus. Kyle rips Shivan Gorge off the top of his library and uses it to deal 1 damage to Joe, killing him. And I really don't care how many games Shivan Gorge wins. It is still a terrible card. Anyway, that's the game. Thanks for watching.
Sack Kaervek.
Look at this. This is.
Shivan Gorge.
Wow.
God damn it.
The one time
Oh,
that card has
Shivan Gorge.
ever
For the
done
win.
anything.
Look at this. This is just terrible.
Wow. Shivan Gorge.
That still does not justify the presence of that card.
Yeah.